Miata y'all, and welcome to the Stardrop Corner, the #1 place to discuss all things Stardew Valley. So today we're going to be talking about Demetrius, and I recently did a community post asking who the best father is in Stardew Valley, and I'm not surprised that Demetrius got one of the lowest votes. I think it might be Pierre at like 3% of people that believe he's the best, and 6% for Demetrius. Regardless, very, very, very low numbers. Demetrius comes up a lot in conversations concerning if he's a good husband, a good father, a good stepfather, and just an overall good person. So I definitely wanted to talk about him today since we spoke about Shane, who's very controversial, Elliot, who apparently is controversial, and now Demetrius. So I think we should break it down into 3 sections based on a lot of the things that I see about Demetrius online. That he's a bad husband, that he's a bad father, and that he's a bad stepfather. Now, side note, I think father and stepfather are hand in hand, especially when like the kids are young and there's been a lot of help with raising the kids and all of that. A stepfather is absolutely a father. That's fine, whatever. But I just want in separate categories, just for the sake of this podcast episode, to really differentiate his behavior towards Maru and towards Sebastian, because obviously there is a difference. Let's start with the whole bad husband. Is Demetrius a bad husband? So for this one, people usually say he's a bad husband because of the little bit of like bickering between him and Robin. So there's that heart event where Robin builds that pretty double bed, and obviously she's a carpenter, so she puts a lot of love and work into her work, absolutely. And she specifically notes the detailing on the bedposts or something like that, and Demetrius says something like, and I am paraphrasing, I am not directly quoting, he says something like, oh, it's an inefficient use of resources for the artistic stuff. And Robin says, oh, some people just don't get it. And he's like, no, I just think it's inefficient, blah, 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 blah. And then Robin asks us, the farmer, oh, what do you think? And up until this point, I'm fine with the conversation. I think it's whatever. I think friends, spouses, people that are close to artists might make a little, comment or whatever, be like, oh wow, you spent 20 hours on this, you spent so much time on this painting, I bet you could have did it faster if you did this. And it's not like 100% real comment or anything like that. It's just like I don't know, people think they're being funny when they say it. I don't know. I also don't find a lot of people funny, so don't ask me. I think people get awkward and they're socially inept and they don't know what to say next, so they just say these little things. And there's just not much to it. It's just a little comment. Demetrius, however, I do think he was being serious. I do think that was a genuine thought process, but it stops there. It is not like, I think a lot of people expand on that and they come to the conclusion, oh, Demetrius is undermining Robin's work. He doesn't respect her work. He doesn't respect her creativity. And it's like, no, I think for Demetrius, it is extremely black and white. He looked at it and was like, wow, Robin's carpentry work is amazing. I'm wondering if it's an inefficient use of wood for this bed though, because now it's like an art project. But Robin's carpentry work is very serious. She built the house that they live in. It is very, very serious. And Demetrius has a separate dialogue where he says, oh, Robin got some recognition for all of her hard work. She deserves it. But I honest to God can't remember where that's mentioned. That's the problem with these podcasts, because it's not a video. I'm not scripting the whole thing, so I didn't cite that. But I literally just got that dialogue from Demetrius 2 live streams ago, so I know he said it. Anyways, I digress. In Demetrius's mind, Robin's carpentry work is very, very serious. It's on par with Harvey's medical work. It's hard work, and she does hard work. So I think when Demetrius says like, oh, I think it's an inefficient use of materials, it would be like if Harvey said, hey, I stitched up Maru because she got a cut or whatever. And instead of doing regular stitches, I did the stitches in a little heart. And like, I think Demetrius would be like, that's an inefficient usage of like the thread or whatever they use. I don't know what doctors actually use. Some string, medical thread. Anyways, like I think he would view it like that. And I think in his mind, art is art and work is work. I think if Maru made a robot that had a bunch of flashing lights and decorations, he would also say the same thing. He would be like, wow, the robot is extremely intelligent. It's very sophisticated. The technology that you have crafted into this robot is very impressive. However, I think the metal wings that you added to it that don't make it fly, and the blue stripes on the legs, isn't that like a waste of resources? Like, I honestly think Demetrius would say the same exact thing to Maru, and we all know how much he loves Maru. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that one. So I'm actually fine with this conversation up until this point. I start having issues with the next part, and I don't really see people talking about it. It's only talking about the whole inefficient use of resources part. If the player says, no, Robin's in the right, like her artistry is very important, Robin will go, huh, see, someone appreciates it. And then Demetrius will storm out of the room and say, okay, if anybody needs me, I'll be in the doghouse. See, all right, now we're cooking, because that's cringe as hell. Like, this reminds me of that boomer humor. And for anybody that doesn't know, I don't know if I'm a millennial or a late millennial, whatever. I'm a millennial. And growing up, I constantly saw the boomer humor on sitcoms, TV shows, comic books, blah, 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 blah. Irritates the hell out of me. Oh, the old ball and chain wants me home. And it's like, oh my God, my brother in Christ, just divorce your wife if you hate her that much. I really, really cannot stand comments like that. And I think a lot of millennials cannot stand comments like that. I think a lot of people are very, very sensitive in a good way, towards these little jokes and comments because, first of all, a lot of it, there's a lot of misogyny around it, where like these people just straight up hate their wives 100%. There's just a lot of grossness around it. I'm not a fan of it. And I feel like when a lot of millennials also play Stardew Valley and they had to hear their parents and their grandparents make these nasty comments in regards to their spouse, now we're very sensitive to it. So when we hear like little comments, little jokes about, oh, my wife, oh, I'm in the doghouse, it's very fucking cringe. It's really, really cringe. Nobody wants to hear it. And the first thing that I'm gonna say is, all right, just divorce him. I don't care. Whatever. Like, I don't want to hear you whine about your spouse. I don't want to hear it. So I think when Demetrius says that, it's like, all right, now that is kind of problematic. Like, that's kind of cringe. Maybe he meant it as a joke. Maybe he was being ironic. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that. Maybe Concerned Ape was just being silly goofy, because Concerned Ape does add some silly goofy stuff in Stardew Valley. Like the whole Pierre punching Morris. That was fine. I didn't think that was cringe or goofy until Morris like flies through the screen. It just feels very like sitcom. It feels very like PBS Kids laugh track just played. And it's like, okay. So I think Concerned Ape maybe added it as a silly goofy moment, but a lot of people grew up with like very nasty married couples in their lives, so we're a little sensitive to it, myself included. So that was cringe. But besides that one moment, people also bring up the whole tomato thing where Robin sends Demetrius out to get some fruit because she wants to make a fruit salad. He comes home with tomatoes and she says, what the hell is wrong with you? Why did you bring tomatoes? He says, actually, tomatoes are fruits. And again, we can be asked if we believe that tomatoes are a fruit or if they're a vegetable. If you didn't know this, the whole conversation between what's a fruit and what's a vegetable it's a very moot conversation, because there's botany definitions and then there's culinary definitions. And then there's also the expression that, everybody likes to parrot, myself included, because I'm about to. Intelligence is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is never using it in a fruit salad. Like, duh. I don't care how smart you are. If you're an actual chef and you actually have an ounce of wisdom, you do not slice up a tomato and put it in your fruit salad. So it's basically that little conversation showing that Demetrius is very scientific. He is very literal. He is very black and white. But Robin, she's, a little bit more socially, she's more of a social butterfly. She knows like a little bit more of the nuances of everyday life. So of course she's like, no, tomatoes are a vegetable. I am not putting this in the fruit salad that I want to make in 5 minutes. What are you thinking? So this little heart event, gets brought up as evidence for why Demetrius is a bad husband. I think that's just crazy. I think that's ridiculous. I think we can extrapolate some other pieces of information about Demetrius, i.e., I believe that Demetrius is very neurodivergent. I feel like there's a lot of dialogues from him that other neurodivergent people relate to heavily, and I think some of the things that people say about Demetrius, it gets a little nasty because it just feels like they're just talking like, all right, you just don't like neurodivergent people, it feels. But is this evidence for him being a bad husband? Absolutely not. And I feel like a lot of people, they'll go on Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe he got tomatoes from the grocery store for his wife. Robin should divorce him immediately. And it's like, holy hell. I have to know how long these people have been married for and what stupid little fights, stupid little bickering arguments, whatever they have with their spouses. Because Jesus Christ, if we're signing the divorce papers over this, oh my god, that is crazy to me. That is honest to God crazy to me. And so I don't know if it's like certain age groups kind of overcompensating because certain age groups got tired of seeing the arguing and the bickering and the nasty passive aggressiveness from married couples in their life, or if this is just inexperienced people just talking out their ass. Oh well, if I had a wife, I would never bring tomatoes home. Like, okay. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I don't think that's evidence for Demetrius being a bad husband. What I think is happening is it's very difficult for people to separate the different sides of each person, and be able to accept that, somebody could be a good friend but a bad father, or maybe a good father but a bad husband, or maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. I think a lot of people don't like Demetrius because they find him annoying. They find him socially awkward. They find him socially inept. They find him too literal, stick in the mud, however you want to call it, and therefore he must be a bad husband, he must be a bad father, he must be a bad stepfather. And we're gonna tackle the whole bad father, bad stepfather thing in just a minute, don't you worry. But I think that ends up happening a lot. I see it a lot with Pierre. People do not like Pierre for a multitude of reasons that I've talked about a million times, in the live streams and in that video in defense of Pierre. But then they'll also say, oh, Pierre's a bad father and a bad husband and a bad friend and a bad this. It's like, okay, he's not from hell, right? This isn't Satan. Like, even like kind of bad people do have another side to them. The perfect example is George. Me personally, I actually don't like George. I don't like seeing old people be nasty towards like their spouse of like 50 years, especially when the spouse is like the one that's always taking care of them. It's just really sad to me that it's a harsh reality that the person you marry when you're 20, 30, 40, however old you get married, I don't care, is probably not going to be the same person when y'all are 80, 90 years old. Aging affects your brain, it affects your personality. Obviously, a lot of things can happen over the years, injuries, a lot of things can happen in life. Obviously, George has been through a lot. George and Evelyn lost a daughter. That is That is crazy. That is absolutely horrible. George got into an accident. That's why he's in the wheelchair. So he has plenty of reasons to be cranky and, very easily irritable on a day-to-day basis. With that said, seeing him be kind of crabby towards Evelyn, I just don't like it because, she doesn't deserve it either. She also lost a daughter, right? And I'm sure her life has also had hardships. We just don't really see it as clearly as we can with George because he's the one in a wheelchair and he's the one that talks about it. But Evelyn, I mean, right? They both have had very long lives and I'm sure many things happened. So with that said, despite the fact that I personally don't like George for the reasons that I said, I know for a fact he is a good grandfather. I know for a fact he did his best to raise Alex. He absolutely did. And I know for the majority of their marriage, he probably was a very good husband, right? I'm not just gonna paint him as this villain just because I don't like certain aspects about him. And would I personally be friends with George if I was in Pelican Town? No. That shit would irritate me real quick and I don't want to hear it. I'm sorry. So I think what happens with Demetrius is people don't like him and therefore every aspect of him is just flawed. He's evil. He's horrible. He has no redeeming qualities. On the other side of it, or not on the other side, I guess, to continue, I don't know. I think a lot of people are just butthurt because they want to marry Robin and they can't. So they view Demetrius as this villain that's stolen Robin away from them. And I don't know, that part is kind of cringe. I get it, you want to marry Robin or whatever, but I don't know. I think it's a little cringe. I don't know. I think it's just a little cringe. I don't know. So anyways, in regards to him being a bad husband, no, I don't think he's a bad husband. The little bickering cutscenes, maybe they're cringe. At worst, they're cringe. But is it showing that it's not a loving relationship? No, not at all. It's showing that you can absolutely love your spouse of however many years, and they still annoy the hell out of you and say stupid shit sometimes where you roll your eyes. And that's fine. That is a-okay. It is what it is, right? What I also see is that they're the only married couple that actually goes out on dates. And that is a shocking concept for a lot of people. I was talking to someone months ago and it was just a casual conversation and I mentioned that me and John have weekly date days and they're like, oh, you guys go out on a date every week? And I'm like, yeah. We'd go out on more dates if we could, but it's nice to at least set aside one date per week because life is so fast. You blink and it's 5 years later and you think, oh, well, I'll get around to it. But you don't. I promise you, you won't. Time goes by so fast, life goes by so fast, and it can be snatched from you at any moment. So pushing things off for later, it doesn't work for me. I'd rather have scheduled things, scheduled dates, scheduled outings. Same thing with my friends. I like, looking forward to certain events and having it be on a regular basis. So nothing can ever slip through the cracks. It's also why I like holidays so much. I absolutely love holidays because people always say oh, well, you don't have to give presents on Christmas. You can give presents any time of the year. But it's okay. Yeah, in La La Land, I'd be giving presents every single day. Fact of the matter is, my budget is limited, my time is limited, and my energy is limited. I so look forward to Christmas, Valentine's Day, anniversaries, birthdays. I really, really love it because it's your reminder to just kind of pause life. And it's all right, no ifs, ands, or buts. Let's set aside time to show people that we appreciate them. Seeing Robin and Demetrius have weekly saloon dances, saloon date nights, or however you want to call it, and then also seeing them spend so much time at the festivals, I really love it. I think it's great, and I don't think enough people talk about it. No, I do not think Demetrius is a bad husband. With that said, do I think he's a bad father? Uh-oh. See, now it's starting to get spicy. He puts in a lot of effort to be a good father. We'll get to the stepfather part in a minute. Yeah, we're just talking about Maru right now. He puts in a shit ton of effort, and I feel like the bond that they have is absolutely wonderful. However, The overprotectiveness is cringe. It's cringe. Just like how I don't like boomer humor with, oh, the old ball and chain is waiting for me at home. Just like how I don't like that, I also don't like the whole, oh, well, if my daughter ever brings a guy home, I'm gonna get the shotgun. Shut the hell up. It's so cringe. It's so cringe. And it's honest to God misogynistic, because it's like, okay, so are you aware that your daughter is an adult woman that can make her own decisions and think for herself? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't like the concept of asking the father for permission before you propose to the daughter. I don't like, I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like it. And I feel like on one hand, Demetrius admits that Maru is so intelligent, genius level. As we can see with the fact that she literally builds a robot from the ground up. Like, that is crazy. She is so intelligent. She is very kind. She has a good head on her shoulders. She is considerate. She is sweet. She's a hard worker. And yet somehow she's going to be so easily manipulated and duped by this scandalous farmer that moves in. It's just kind of cringe. And it makes me think that Demetrius doesn't take her seriously in those regards, and it's this overprotectiveness that I feel it doesn't really prepare your children to be prepared for the world. It doesn't set them up for success. I do think he's a good father to Maru, but I think he makes a lot of mistakes. So when I say a good father, I don't mean like S tier or A tier. I'm thinking like B or C. The overprotectiveness is weird, and then we get into the stepfather thing. So you know that Maru has a brother, right? She has a half brother, and like when you marry somebody and you know they have a kid from a previous relationship and y'all decide to have a kid of your own, it is the responsibility of the adults to do their absolute best to nurture any possibility of a friendship between the half siblings, step siblings, however you want to call it. No, excuse me. They are half siblings. They are not step siblings. Robin was pregnant with both of them. Excuse me. I'm not going to edit that out. Let's just keep going. It is the responsibility of the parents to do their best to nurture any possibility of a friendship between those half siblings. It is also the responsibility of the parents to provide equal opportunities to the best of their ability. Of course, one child might need more help than the other with school or making friends or hobbies and activities and things like that, but it's the adults' responsibility. I think a lot of people will look at Sebastian and Maru, and because we're seeing them as already adults, and you know, you can think that they're in their early 20s or late 20s, irrelevant. But we're seeing them as adults, and we're seeing them still not really get along. We're seeing Maru say, oh, I wish me and Sebastian were a little bit closer, but you know, blah 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 blah. And then Sebastian says to us, I forgot how many heart levels it is, but Sebastian can say to us that, oh, everybody thinks Maru's so great and so nice and so sweet. I can't believe nobody can see through that act. Like, he says something kind of nasty towards her. Mind you, Maru is completely ignorant and oblivious about the fact that Sebastian dislikes her this much. She does not know that he says this about her. The fact that there's so much tension between them, the fact that Sebastian dislikes her so much, he dislikes her and Demetrius so much. This has been going on for years. Something happened. I don't think it was just one big event, because if it was one big event, then there would be a whole heart event and cutscene, and Sebastian would be talking about it. Because there's not just some big reveal, I think what happened is it's just years and years and years of Sebastian maybe struggling a little bit to fit in with the rest of the family dynamic, because he's more introverted, because he's a little bit more quieter, because he's shy, because he misses his dad maybe. I don't know. We don't know. But I think it was a repeated pattern of years where Sebastian wasn't really fitting in with the family dynamic and he was being left out. And maybe it was a lack of effort from Demetrius. Maybe Demetrius tried his best and still failed. We don't know. We know that in their bedroom, Robin and Demetrius's bedroom, we know that there's a book that says how to, oh my god, how is it titled? How to be a good stepdad, but it's phrased in a very nerdy way that you know it's Demetrius. It's something like how to maximize the efficiency of being a stepfather or some bullshit like that. Anyways, we know it's Demetrius's book. But it's possible that Robin got the book for him or he bought it himself. We don't know. It's one of those situations where and I don't know if any of y'all have ever had any experience with it or if you're familiar with it, but have y'all ever heard or seen parents or estranged family members that give you that little bullshit line of, oh, well, the phone works both ways, and they're like 45 years old and they're saying that to a 9-year-old, and like everybody and it's just like, it's always like this quiet tension-filled moment when that's said, because it sounds logical at first, like, yeah, the phone works both ways. Both parties should be putting in effort to maintain a relationship of some sort. But reality is, it's a 9-year-old and it's a 45-year-old. Like, I'm sorry, but the 9-year-old's brain isn't even finished cooking yet. No, they are not thinking about calling you and maintaining a connection with you, and maintaining some type of familiarity and getting to know you, and then revealing themselves to you and you getting to know them. That is not going through their thought process. That is not going through their brain. That's why children don't raise themselves. Intelligent adults are supposed to raise children. That's like the whole idea. So I feel like it might be a case. It might be a case where there was effort from Demetrius for the longest time, but once Sebastian turned into an adult, he could do whatever the hell he wants. It's his choice, right? It's not like Demetrius can kick him out. That is not his house. That is Robin's house, right? And I think it got to a point where Sebastian just kind of was like, all right, I'm not gonna put in any effort. I tried, I'm not going to. And then Demetrius was like, oh, I'm not going to put any effort. I tried, I'm just going to go this way. And then here we are. And now it's just like this stalemate kind of sorta. And my issue with that is, I understand that it's extremely exhausting to keep trying to connect with a child that obviously doesn't want to connect with you, but you keep trying because they're a child and you should keep trying. But then once they're an adult, it's like, well, they're an adult now, whatever. But my POV, it's a 45-year-old saying that to a 20-year-old, to a 22-year-old, to a 25-year-old. You still have so much more life experience than that person. Like, you know better. You know that effort needs to be made, because no matter what happens, Sebastian is going to come home. Maybe for Christmas, maybe for, I don't know, Thanksgiving or whatever, but like, he's still family. So it seems like Demetrius just kind of stopped putting in effort and just started focusing solely on Maru. And that's pretty messed up. We don't know if he focused entirely on Maru because that's his daughter, or if Maru was just way more receptive, so it was easier to keep connecting with her because obviously they have very similar hobbies and such. But with Demetrius putting in so much more effort into Maru, and there's obviously more of a connection, it just planted this seed in between Maru and Sebastian that just grew into this gigantic tree. It's this gigantic obstacle. And now the two children don't have a connection with each other. And it's really hard to blame one or the other, because I have to blame the parents. I absolutely have to. So the question is Demetrius a bad stepfather? Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. If you're the stepfather, stepmother, whatever, one of your responsibilities is to really do your damnedest. Really, really do your damnedest to make it a healthy dynamic in the household. And we don't know what happened, during their childhood. We weren't around, obviously. and everybody points it out, we can see that Demetrius doesn't talk to Sebastian. He doesn't talk to Sebastian, never says anything about him. Sebastian only has negative things to say about Demetrius. We never see Maru asking Demetrius why he doesn't hang out with Sebastian, or asking Sebastian why he doesn't hang out with Demetrius. We don't see it. It feels like there's this invisible tension where everybody's kind of like stepping on eggshells, and it's this giant roadblock. And honest to God, I think it was a combination of Demetrius and Robin kind of, I had a complete mind blank, kind of fostering this roadblock. And now it's gotten so big that I don't want to say there's nothing that can be done, because that sounds very hopeless and defeatist, but it's gotten to the point where it needs so much effort to take it down. And you know what's so funny, and I don't know if Concerned Ape did this, but you know how Robin's house is right next to the mines, and we start the game and there's that giant roadblock right next to their house because Joja Mart knocked a boulder down, and that's why we can't access the mines. Isn't that funny? I don't know if that was like a purpose little symbolic moment, or if I'm just like doing the whole red lines and making things up, but I find that interesting. And I hope that I'm not like stepping on any toes by roasting Robin a little bit, but my POV is like, whenever it's like, oh, this person's a bad father, but the mother is really good. Like, no, I'm sorry. Like, if there's a bad father in the house, sorry, but somebody's enabling it, like, and being complacent. Like, sorry. Because I looked through Robin's dialogue, because I was like, oh man, everybody always says that Demetrius never mentioned Sebastian once in any of his dialogue. How many times does Robin mention Maru? And it's literally once. And it was in the same sentence where she was talking about Sebastian. The sentence wasn't even about Maru. So it's like, all right, I think both parents are kind of favoring one over the other, which makes sense. Like, I completely understand why Robin would favor Sebastian, because he probably struggled a lot growing up with fitting in and being social. He needed more support, and he was there first. So I can understand Robin being like, well, it's not fair that so many things are changing for him. Let me pay him extra attention. Let me pay him, spend a little extra time with him. And then I can also see Demetrius being like, well, Maru should also have, like, extra attention, shouldn't she? Okay, I'll spend time with Maru then. You'll spend time with Sebastian. I can see that happening a lot. And this is just all theories and speculation. But I can see it happening where, like, growing up, like, Robin took Sebastian somewhere and Demetrius took Maru somewhere. And, like, that was just, like, the dynamic for a really, really long time. And when that's the dynamic for so long, it's really hard to, like, break the dynamic and break the routine, especially when somebody tries to reach out. I could imagine, maybe Robin says, oh, hey, Demetrius, Maru, I usually take Sebastian next to the river. Do you guys want to come with me? And then Maru or Demetrius might say, oh, but every Thursday, and today's Thursday, we always work on our experiments. And it feels like a rejection. And conversely, I can see Maru or Demetrius asking Sebastian, hey, do you want to, like, work on something with us? Like, it would be so cool to have you work on it. And then, Sebastian says, I'm not interested. I'd rather be alone. And they take that as a rejection. They take that as a huge, like, offense. Because the routine has been changed. The dynamic is just filled with tension. And it's really hard to work with that. It's really, really hard to kind of make sure that there's some melodic dynamic in the household when there's so many different personality traits mixed together. Because we don't really know where Sebastian got his personality from. It must have been from his dad. I think Robin is maybe on the quieter side, because when you first move into Pelican Town, she says, oh yeah, have you met everybody yet? Ugh, that sounds exhausting. But, I mean, I don't know, you could be an extrovert and be exhausted from, like, wanting to, meet every single person in a new town while also starting up a farm. So, Robin doesn't really feel like as much of a loner or anything like that. To me, maybe she's a little bit introverted, but nothing crazy. Sebastian is 100% a loner, 100%. But Robin, she even says to us like, "Oh yeah, if you're ever like in the area, feel free to visit and just, chit chat with us." Um, so I think Sebastian got a lot of his personality from his dad. It must have been his dad. And we don't know what happened to him. So it's this dynamic where it's even hard for him to connect with his mom. Sometimes, like even between them, there's a little bit of a roadblock. So yeah, I can't imagine how much of a roadblock it would be for the new guy that just married your mom. And yeah, like, it is what it is. So with all of that said, I am going to say that Demetrius is a bad stepfather because I don't feel like he did everything he could have or should have done to foster a healthy dynamic in the house and not favor Maru and therefore contribute to the isolation of Sebastian. I am going to say he's a bad stepfather. Isolating your biological kids over your stepkids, I mean, that's pretty bad. That's like bare minimum of being a step parent. Like, not doing that is like bare minimum. It's like number one, step one. Don't tear the family apart. That's pretty bad. Is he a bad father? He's all right. He's like C tier. I don't really like the overprotectiveness with Maru. I don't know. It's just really cringe. Is he a bad husband? Absolutely not. He's a great husband. Yeah, there's a little bit of like cringe and like bickering or whatever. But name a relationship that y'all are in. You never bickered once. You're happy as hell. You never annoyed each other over the like tiniest things. I'll wait, right? And I'll be waiting forever. Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. Guys, thanks so much for listening to this. Those are my thoughts on Demetrius. Leave a comment down below on any other characters that you'd like me to do a podcast video about, and I will absolutely write that to my list. Thank you so much for listening. I will see y'all next time. Have a great day. Bye.